thank you very much, and appreciate you giving your time to speak. There's so many questions coming out of that. I kind of think we want to could unpack that, but we have two more speakers, and actually it's a perfect segue into introducing Sir Mark Grundy, who's CEO of Shirelands Collegiate Academy, which could never be accused of not following an outstanding approach to the curriculum and the achievements of your group of schools. I think, Sir Mark, it'll be wonderful to hear from you, but very much as part, moving on from what Tim said, that challenge of how can government, what should government be doing to ensure sort of as Tim said, swift movement to get high quality resources to teachers? What would you value, and what's your experience from Shireland's perspective?
Afternoon, everybody. Really good to speak to you all. Caroline, I was going to show some slides, but I'm not sure I'm going to actually. So I hope I'm not the only one. I'm a little bit disappointed with the white paper. I was hoping for something that was actually going to be a little bit less superficial. This has been a really difficult 2 years. So my mat is it's nursery schools, primary schools, secondary schools and sixth form. It's not the size of ARC, so not the same scale as Helen deals with. But the issues that we're dealing with, I don't think are really addressed in the white paper, because we are struggling to recruit staff desperately. I'm struggling to find young people who've come through either their BEd or their PGCE programme, feel confident this year to cope with what we're throwing at them. And certainly in terms of recruiting for September, we've got real issues. And I was hoping for something in the white paper that actually acknowledged that whether we like it or not, nationally, ministers haven't really backed EdTech over a period of time. Don't think they've really backed the publishing community, be it online or be it paper-based, the way that they should have done. So I sort of understand why we're not in the same place that Finland are, but I think it would be really good to actually have an acknowledgement that actually tech had a much more structural, systemic role in the improvement of the education system than I think I saw in the white paper. Because when we were in the really dark days of COVID, the only thing people could go to was to actually, with people like Helen's support, create Oak, and then for us to scramble around hoping to God we could actually train our staff to do something with it. And to be perfectly honest, it wasn't good enough then, and it isn't good enough now. And I hope that we're going to see something very different as we move forward. I don't think we've trained staff well. So there is I suppose I'd echo much of what Helen said at the beginning. You can create the best resources in the world, but if you don't have a well-trained workforce that know how to deploy them, the kids will get a pretty rough deal. I think there's also a bit in this that we seem to have glossed over as well, is that actually we've stopped training young people to use technology well. There is a massive mythology out there that because they could use WhatsApp and Instagram, they can actually do something with something that's online that's profitable and that has some degree of depth to it. So I it just feels a bit Emperor's New Clothes-ish, the white paper. It feels a bit like I haven't been through COVID, and whilst I don't want lots of sympathy, because we've all been in this, I saw the worst and the best of the English school system during the last 2 years. I've watched staff in my trust and in other trusts do an amazing job, all sorts of staff. And I think the youngsters have done remarkably well. But what I wanted from the white paper was more of an acknowledgement that actually we'd learned from this and we were going to be different. And we were actually going to find a way to harness all the things that are great across our system and not pretend that actually it didn't happen and it's all going to be okay. Tutoring is a massive issue for me. And I know a number of you on this call, some I don't, some I know. I cannot get tutors, just can't get them. So I rather stupidly said to my heads of school, let's see if we can have just 2 or 3 providers and let's have some sort of symmetry, synergy, let's build it together, let's create a sort of ecosystem of tutoring. Oh, they must have thought I'd lost the plot because there weren't enough people, they weren't trained well enough, the guidance didn't come out quickly enough, and to be honest, we didn't run the system well enough. And that's sort of, Caroline, I suppose what I want to push with this is, for me, I've had to use EdTech as an architecture for improvement because I don't have anything else. I've had to use it to invade family homes because I don't have anything else. I've had to use it to train staff. You know what's coming next. So I really hoped the white paper would give me this architecture for improvement that was more than making every school an academy. That, you know, I get that. I don't need that ramming down my throat. I actually need to be persuaded why it's a good idea now for the remaining schools to academise. And to be honest, so do they. I think we also need to be a bit more honest nationally that we've chosen people to deliver things not based on their ability to deliver, but actually on their ability to get high levels of performance in national metrics. They're not the same. So what we've done we've said, yep, you can be a provider, or more accurately, ministers have chosen providers based on their ability in phonics tests or English baccalaureate percentages. Don't think that's a great way to actually make the school system better, because it immediately marginalizes a whole group of providers who could do a great thing. So what do I want from the white paper in terms of EdTech? I want EdTech to be much more at the center of it. I want an acknowledgement that the very good bits we saw in terms of Oak we need to add other elements to that. And it's not just about the training of our workforce. And I don't mean teachers, I mean everybody who has contact with young people, because I think the non-teaching staff in schools in this country get a terrible deal. And yet it's something we never talk about. It's really easy to say how ineffective teaching assistants are, when for decades we did nothing to make them any better. So let's create an architecture. Where I slightly disagree, I don't know whether I do, Helen, with you or not, we've spoken to different things together. I actually think something that's structured is better than nothing. And my worry is in lots of schools there was nothing. I was massively disappointed in our region. I also do quite a lot of work with Ofsted to find out how many schools actually closed their door in the first year of the pandemic and pretty much did nothing other than send a worksheet home. That's really not a great view of the English school system. We should have been better than that. Right? So create an architecture for me. I suppose to finish, 2 or 3 things that we've done is we've obviously at a smaller scale than art, we've taken our curriculum and actually I've put myself through the hell of working with a publisher. I don't think anyone from HOD is on this call, so therefore they can't be deeply offended by what I'm going to say. But to actually take your curriculum and work with a publisher, I thought I was pedantic. I'm not, I'm clearly not. I thought I was an utter pedant, but I'm not. When you actually work with an editorial team who work from a subject perspective and then a phase perspective, you meet pedants of a completely different level to anything I'd experienced. It's done us the world of good. For people to come back and say, actually, show me that you can show this. Show me this body of knowledge. Show me actually how you develop skills next door to a body of knowledge, has done my team the world of good, and therefore the schools that we support the world of good. I can't get tutors, so actually we've looked at something different. We've worked with YPO, Glue, and then a tutoring support company called Infinity, and we've actually created this thing called Ascola. So we've created a group of online learning assistants, and what our children do is I accept I am the pensioner on this call, but I remember Ask Jeeves. I never got quite how to use it because I obviously asked stupidly inane questions because the responses were pretty much useless. But actually, think of Ask Jeeves, think of 50 to 100 online learning assistants who are graduates, undergraduates, who we've trained, who actually are available for the youngsters outside of school hours and at the weekend. And they're supporting my youngsters from a perspective of, if you don't actually know how to do your work or you don't understand something, you can ask your online learning assistant. That's what an OLA is. So, but they also will give wellbeing support. And we've worked with Kooth to provide a series of Kooth resources. That's absolutely flown. I can't get enough capacity. And I think the learning for me, everybody, in this was, my kids really resented the National Tutor Programme, because it forced them to do things in blocks of 15 hours in subjects they didn't want to do at times they weren't prepared to get up for. And I wondered why it failed. We're actually doing it in a just-in-time way that's actually delivered in the way young people consume things. Like I say, I can't get enough tutors. We can't actually get enough people to satisfy the need. And I've got about 2,000 youngsters accessing that at the moment. I could triple that overnight if I could find the people. And I suppose the reason for mentioning that is I just think we need to do some different things. And that's really what I want EdTech to provide. It's actually what I want you all to do. I think I've got about 3 years before I retire. Before I retire, I want to leave my career, because EdTech's been really important to me throughout it, feeling that it's as valued as my kids have valued it and my staff and our families have valued it. And I have to say, Caroline, I think we've got a little way to go, but I do think there is an opportunity with where we are in terms of post-pandemic and possibly the vagaries of the white paper, because I do think there's some big gaps that some of us can fill. Okay.
Thank you so much, Sir Mark. That was inspirational, and I think you've encapsulated actually the by teachers for teachers in a nutshell, in the sense of actually the education system, schools working with the commercial sector in partnership actually to innovate solutions that help solve the problems you face. I think that's hugely inspirational.